Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our examination of Journey, The Adventures of Wolverine McAllister, written and drawn by William Eisner Loebs. We're going to look at number 20 through 23 today. This is the beginning of the New Hope storyline. We kind of saw a prologue of it the last two issues where they were getting closer to it. And last issue, they actually met someone from New Hope, even though they didn't know it yet. And so this is the first half pretty much. And next episode, we'll look at 25 through 27. 24 through 27. And we'll finish up that storyline. And start off with another cover by William Eisner Loebs. His weird, interesting way of drawing faces. And we have a recap page. And we start off, once again, the narration is from the journals of Elmer Allen Craft, the H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe kind of a pastiche character in the comic. And he's describing skulls kind of in a very poetic way. And the reason why is because, as you saw last issue, Wolverine and Kraft hooked up with, what's this guy's name again? Templar Collins. And Templar Collins is an archaeologist. He's been studying these kind of mounds, these almost underground mounds, which nobody knows the origins of, who built them. And so he's investigating. And basically they've been staying in this mound all week, living in it, because it's freezing outside. And it's basically an ossuary. So that's why he's talking about skulls. There's skulls everywhere. There's bones. And they have a little discussion amongst themselves about who could have made these structures. Wolverine says that one of the skulls looks like it's a Creek Indian. And the other two are just like kind of in their racist way, or like, oh, the Indians are too primitive to have built such a sophisticated structure. It obviously couldn't be them. I think we now know about these mounds. This is 1812, of course. They didn't know, or 1811, around then. And yeah, they were built by the Native Americans. So they go outside. And they kind of ask Templar about, what he's, his origins and stuff. And he says, I live over in New Hope. And they're like, New Hope? What's that? It's like, it's a little town I live in. It's 5 miles away. And Kraft is furious. He's like, there was a town 5 miles away, and we've been spending this whole week in this disgusting hole in the ground eating dried squirrel meat and roots. And he runs off in the direction of New Hope. So Wolverine follows him. He knows they'll catch up to him pretty quickly, because Kraft isn't that good a woodsman. William Eisner Loebs begins this narrative technique here, where the tops and bottoms are telling an alternate story, while we follow Wolverine and Kraft as they head towards New Hope. So in these little segments, we meet Drummond Wright. He's the founder of one of the founders of New Hope, and his wife. And they have a servant woman named Eleanor. And the wife is just so terrible to her. Like the worst boss you could ever imagine. Just a complete jerk to poor Eleanor. And Eleanor just sucks it up and says, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Meanwhile, Wolverine and Kraft, Kraft is basically pontificating about poetry. And Wolverine's just like, he doesn't say anything. That's Wolverine's way. But you could tell he's like, this guy's such a pompous ass. And now we stop that narrative device for a while, because Wolverine and Kraft, Kraft first, comes upon this man. And we're going to find out that this is Dane Ross. He's another founder of New Hope. He's chopping ice out of the lake, and he asks Kraft for help, and Kraft assists him. There's another interesting little bit of wood lore here. Apparently, when you pull up ice in the winter, it's very pungent. It's this like horrible smell comes out of the lake, which I thought was interesting. I never knew that. I like how Loeb's constantly peppers this comic with little bits of information like that. So Wolverine shows up, and he helps them push this giant hunk of ice. He was kind of lying in wait to make sure that this guy was all right. So they take it to this ice house. I guess this guy, Ross, he chops ice all winter so he can, for summertime, they can preserve their meat. And now we go back to the double narrative. And basically it's just this woman, Mrs. Wright, just being so foul to this poor woman. I really thought that she was going to kill her at one point. Like, that's how horrible she is to her. If she picked up a knife and slit her throat, you'd be like, that's a fair cop, governor, as they say in England. Like, yeah, she was asking for it. She's terrible. So on their way to town, right outside of town, they meet Wright, Drummond Wright. And he greets them, welcomes them to the town. And now we cut back to the single narrative. And then right then, while they're all chatting, Eleanor comes running out of the house. She caught her dress on fire. I forgot to point that out. Right here we see it. It's kind of subtle. I didn't catch it, actually. I was like, what am I looking at here? And yeah, so she goes running out. And I like how Kraft says, my God, McAllister, that woman's on fire. We must do some. And he looks over, and of course, Wolverine is already halfway towards her. Because, Wolverine's a man of action. Most civilized people are just like, what the hell's going on? I don't know. So Wolverine chases her down. I love any sequence in Journey where, a chase or action. He's really good at it, Loeb's. So he chases her down and puts out the fire. Great panel there. I love that odd angle. And I guess she's okay because she's like, I can't breathe, you idiot. Get off of me. But she's pretty singed, as we see here. Another really interesting panel. Doesn't even look like Loeb's there. I like that art in that panel. So it turns out her name she's Eleanor. The same Eleanor that Kraft has been talking about. The woman in Boston that he loved and then ditched. And he's like, oh my God, that's her. What the hell is she doing out here? So he's just bamboozled. So meanwhile, Ross invites the both of them to stay in his smokehouse, and he cooks them dinner. So this is going to be their little base of operations for a while. This is where they're going to shack up. And so they're trying to get to bed, and then all of a sudden the doors open, and this young, kind of teenage girl, young woman, she opens the door and she says, when is an archer a harper? Death comes to me on feet of flame. He kisses my breast. He dwells in my flesh. Death is my lover. Fire, walk with me. I'm just kidding. That last part wasn't there. But it sounds like something from David Lynch or something. But it's she's obviously sleepwalking. And of course, Wolverine and Kraft just look at each other like, what the fuck was that? We have that stupid calendar thing. What a waste of 2 pages. This is kind of a treat. We have that little short story, The Duel, story by John Holland, art by Sam Keith, and Bill Loeb's is the letters. Very young Sam Keith, once again. We've seen him once before in these pages. He's obviously matured since then and gotten better, but you can still so tell it's Sam Keith. Even as a youngster, he had so much chops. Look at the zipatone here. Just everything about this is pretty high craft level, even though some of the faces are a little... he got better. Let's just say he got better. So we see this dude. His name is Jacques Bon, which I think means Jack Good in French. And he walks up to this guy, Monsieur Leblanc's place of residence, and he challenges him to a duel the next day. Later on that night, Jacques Bon is in his mansion with all of his rich friends, and we find out that I guess Monsieur Leblanc made fun of his short stature, but even though he's a short guy, he definitely has short guy syndrome, because he loves to go around challenging guys to duels, because even though he's this little wimp, he's an amazing shot, and he wins every duel he undertakes. And so everyone's kind of afraid of him, even though he's this little simp. But then one of his friends says, oh, this note was just delivered. It's from Monsieur Leblanc. He says he accepts your challenge. I guess if you accept a challenge, though, you can pick the kind of duel. And the note says, he wishes to meet you at dawn with clubs standing 5 feet deep in the lake. And that's the wah ending there. Kind of fun. It takes place in 1812 in New Orleans, so vaguely related to the world of Wolverine McAllister, I guess. We have the letter pages here. We have some fan art, but then we have Matt Feasel of Stick Boy fame doing a great little drawing of Stick Boy as McAllister. So next issue here, number 21. Kind of a whatever. It's a cover. I do like the color, though. Not much of a cover, though. And we start off once again with, Kraft's journal entries, but also once again with one of Wolverine's nightmares. He's having another nightmare. And, God, I love the way he draws this, like, just crudely drawn skeleton type character. It's just very eerie. Kraft mentions that Wolverine, his hackles are raised by this town. He senses something's up in this town. It's not as nice as it is on the surface. There's some kind of secret or something. Kraft poo-poos the idea. This is once again, the nightmare has that it's almost like a poem, like death comes in the darkness, comes when you're closed in, when you can't see, when you can't move. So his nightmares always involve some sort of claustrophobia, something about his dad, maybe. We still don't know the mystery of his nightmares. God, I really like this. It almost reminds me of like 70s Bernie Wrightson in a way. And so Wolverine wakes up from his nightmare. And Kraft is writing this list. I guess he likes to have a thing he calls a remembrance list. Whenever he meets someone of note, he writes their name and what they do. So if he sees them again, he can be like, like remember them. I guess it's a tickle to the vanity, as he says. I should actually do this because I'm terrible with remembering people. And maybe this is a good idea. But Wolverine says, I noticed that I'm not on that list. So it's a kind of interesting little character thing for Wolverine. You usually think he wouldn't care about such a thing, but it does seem like he's a little butthurt. Like, I've been hanging out with this guy. I've saved his life 5 times. And I'm not even on his list. And he kind of gets a little peeved at him. He looks at the notes for his autobiography. Kraft is writing a book about his time in the wilderness. And Wolverine kind of tears it apart and says, hey, your map's wrong, and you should have done this when you're depicting the Huron and whatever. I think he's pissed off about the remembrance list. So he goes outside, and Eleanor is having her hair cut off because most of it was singed and burned off by this woman who I don't know who she is. Let's just call her Chesty, because even though it's like olden times, she's always walking around with like her cleavage hanging out of her dress. Maybe that was a thing in the frontier. Maybe people didn't care. But I assume maybe she's Ross's wife, I think. I don't know. So finally, Kraft comes up to Eleanor and says, hey, hi, how's it going? And Eleanor, she's just completely polite, but you can tell by the word balloons, which are kind of like dripping and frosty, that she does not like him at all. This is kind of cribbed from Dave Sim. Dave Sim was a master of this, of making the word balloon convey the actual real meaning of what the person was saying. So she's just like, oh, so nice to see you again. But it's like, oh. And of course, Kraft is just like, oh, sorry about, running out like that. And she's like, oh, no, it's fine. Don't worry. I understand perfectly. And she obviously, hates his guts. So now Wright, founder Wright, comes up. He's very proud of this town. You can tell. The fact that they've carved out a little bit of civilization from the wilderness. And he tells them the origin of the town. So there was 3 of them at the beginning. Humphrey Collins, who was passed on, Drummond Wright himself, and Dane Ross, the guy who cuts ice. They fought in the Revolution together. Now here's where William S. Lopes does that thing where whenever he does flashbacks, he does super crude, basically just pencil roughs, even though they're inked. And sometimes it kind of works. It's kind of a neat little way to show, like, okay, this is a flashback. I apologize so much, guys. I realize that, I keep getting sick, and now it's at the point where I guess I'm just sick forever. I don't know if I have emphysema or if I have lung cancer, but I'm sorry about the coughing, and I don't know if it's ever going to stop. But I'll do my best. I'm going to have some water. So as I was saying, sometimes, like, that's a pretty cool panel, but look at this. This is just like, come on. That's nothing. I mean, it's I don't know. It's an interesting technique. This one's too is a little shoddy. It's just like, really? You can tighten it up a little bit more than that. So they fought in the Revolution. When the Revolution was done, they basically swore to each other that they'd never forget the principles of equality and democracy. Unfortunately, it seems like everyone else did. As soon as the war was over, folks turned away from equality. Freedom was just a way to make money, he says. So they decided to get away and start over. And so they traveled across country, found a place with some on top of a hill, just like Rome, ancient Rome, and fought off some Native Americans and built their little town. It's a very little town. There's like 3 buildings or something. And he says, we were fruitful and multiplied. So Wright married, he has a wife named Jess. They have 2 sons. 2 goodly sons, as he says, Watson and Everett, and this daughter, Bridget. Founder Ross had this woman, Meg Dashel, as his first wife. She gave him 2 sons. One of them died, but the surviving son is Mandrill, and he'll be very important for the plot later on. He's all grown up now. The other brother died. The wife died. And then Ross married little Bridget right here. I guess she wasn't this little. I'm sure she grew up. And then there's founder Collins. Now, Collins is the one who's passed on. He died. Doesn't tell us how. His wife died. And one of his 2 sons died, which just left Templar. Of course, Templar Collins, the archaeologist we met. So they're not that fruitful and multiplying, because it seems like they're also being subtracted from while they multiply. But that's how it was in the frontier, I guess. Not a very high survival rate. They divided all the land equally, and they made this little haven for themselves. All the grandkids show up, and they're to Grandpa Wright, and they're like, Grandpa, Grandpa. And they're funny little kids. And Wright sees this heron right at the edge of the woods. I believe it's a heron. And he yells at him. He says, get out of here, you damn heathen. Almost gives himself a heart attack. He's just like so riled up. And Wolverine just calms him down. He's like, yeah, he's Scooty. Don't worry about him. It's just a Huron. And then Agatha shows up. Now, Agatha is the oldest of the grandchildren. She's a young woman, basically. And as we saw, she's the one who sleepwalks every night. And we find out her personality is very, very large. She has a very expansive personality. Just talks a lot. It's kind of just almost manic. Kind of sweet, though. Kind of nice. I gotta say, I really appreciate William Messner Loeb's, the way he draws faces so idiosyncratically. Like, I love Wolverine's face, even though it almost looks like a funny animal character, like half dog, half man. But sometimes it's like for example, Agatha's face, it is just weird looking, and I don't know. I'm not buying it. It's not my favorite. So Agatha just talks and talks and talks. She does reveal that it sounds like she has a crush on Templar. So she says, oh, would you play with the children? And Wolverine gets into it, chasing the kids around, pretending he's a grizzly bear. They all love him. And now in the common house that night, everyone's eating, and kind of an argument breaks out. So, like I said, Mandrill, who's Ross's, the Iceman, his son, he's like the hunter of the town. He, in fact, it seems like he's obsessed with hunting and killing things. His father is even worried about him. Ross says, I don't know, son, hunting that much makes a man blood hungry. And he starts yelling back at his dad. It's like, oh, I guess I should break up pieces of ice all day. Like, that's helpful. Founder Wright jumps in. He yells at Wright. So this is obviously a very angry young man. And then he starts tearing into, I believe this is Mrs. Wright. He calls her a withered whore. And this is such an odd scene. Eleanor, who's just the servant girl, really. I mean, she's a widow, but she's been a servant. She smacks him in the face, Mandrill, to shut him up, because he's just being a boorish jerk. And everyone calms down. And so, like, we realize that Mandrill is he's a character, let's just say. So Wolverine and Kraft are about to go to bed. They get in a little argument because Wolverine's always keeping him up at night. So Wolverine's like, fine, I can fix that problem. I don't like sleeping indoors anyway. So he goes out to sleep in the woods. He's woken up in the middle of the night by Agatha. And once again, she's sleepwalking, saying her weird little stuff. Death makes us clean. Death is the redeemer. Sin comes from the water. The water must wash away sin. And she walks into the water. I don't know how she doesn't die of pneumonia. And while Kraft is writing in his journal, Wolverine comes in. He's really shaken. Okay, let's get to the stupid calendar. Let's get past that. And the letter pages, some more fan art. This kid sent in a picture of his own character, a Wendigo. Okay, number 22. Now we got a cover here. Look at this. Wolverine about to be attacked by what you might think is a bear, but this is supposed to be a wolf. Sorry. So, even though I think William Messner is such a good storyteller and comics creator, he can't draw animals. It's a terrible wolf. And it is a thrilling fight to the death, though, between these two inside, as this cover kind of clues us in on. But man, look at that. That's not a wolf. I still like this cover a lot, though. So we start off with, do you guys remember Pear Winter? The old trapper, who's also like a kind of a mystic. And he's walking through the snowstorm, singing a song. And then we see this wolf. Pear Winter doesn't even see him. And I think this might be the same wolf that's been fucking with Wolverine for like 20 issues, stealing his food and stuff. But I'm not positive about that. And this is another instance where Mesner-Loebs does that interesting thing where the narration is from the animal's point of view. You know, a non-verbal creature. We don't know what they think. We never will. But he tries to suss it out. Blood calls to blood. You can smell it in the wind. It's warm, living, your life, dwelling in another's flesh. It is time to take it back. That is so interesting. Like how a wolf would see the world. Like, oh yeah, your guts and your meat, that's really mine. You're just kind of holding it in your skin for a while, but I have every right to take it. And he smells a spore, and he follows it, and he finds this turkey kind of in this little hole in the ground, protected from the elements. And he thinks once again blood calls to blood, and you hear a screech. He kills the turkey. So now we're hanging out with Kraft is walking around in the snow with Agatha. And we see Agatha is such a little fizz gig. He can't even get a word in edgewise. She just keeps talking and talking and talking. And she's very likable, though. She's kind of sweet. She recognizes that Eleanor hates Kraft. Her name's Mrs. Treen. That's her last name. Eleanor Treen. And while they're walking through the snow, Agatha notices that the turkey coop has been, that a wolf got him. She turns around and runs to her grandfather, screaming, "The wolves got the turkeys. They got more turkeys." Now we're back to Pear Winter. We see him singing his little song. God, I love the schnoz on this guy. That's incredible. And then all of a sudden, out of the snow, it's Jimmy Acorn. Pushes Pear Winter aside. Then, we don't know who it is at first. We see some feet stomping on his back, running over him. He tries to get up. Another pair of feet stomp him. This is so Warner Brothers cartoon. The timing of this, like classic Elmer Fudd or something. This is I just really like Loeb's comic timing. And of course, it turns out it's those two Hessian brothers, the surviving ones, with Jimmy Acorn. If you remember a couple issues ago, they went off on their own. And of course, Pear Winter's like, "What the hell are you guys doing? What's going on here?" Now we cut back to Wolverine and Kraft. They're walking through the snow now. And these guys are all suspecting that even Kraft is now coming around to like, something's off in this town. There's some secret here. Everyone seems very nice, but I don't know. And they're obviously, the whole Agatha thing is kind of freaky. The fact that she sleepwalks every night. So when they finally make it to where everyone's hanging out, all the townsfolk, they tell them about the wolf. Of course, Mandrill, the hunter, immediately says, "Oh, I'll get that wolf." And Kraft and Wolverine agree to accompany him. See what I was talking about, these faces? Look at these crazy faces. But I like them. Well, some of them. And now we see something's going on in this town. Eleanor kind of implies that Mandrill killed her husband. That's why she's the widow Treen. She also says that Mandrill might be Wright's son. That basically Wright sowed his seed like goldenrod back when he was a younger man. And she tells Kraft and Wolverine, "Watch out for Mandrill." I like how she calls him a dastard. I like that term. So these guys go off to hunt the wolf. As they're walking around in the snow trying to find it, we realize Mandrill's, he's marching to the beat of his own drummer. He's kind of an oddball, going on and on about how, hunting and how he can't stand any rules in the town, even though it's such a tiny town. And so in a way, he's kin. he's akin to Wolverine, but he's still stuck in a town. But he shouldn't be. It seems like he just can't get along with society. So they're tracking the wolf, and then Wolverine takes off on his own. Now we're back to the Three Stooges and Pear Winter here. They pick up Pear Winter out of the snow, and they realize who he is. Our Jemmy, I think, remembers him. He says, "Oh, you're a necromancer. Maybe you could help us." The reason why they were running in a panic is because ever since the third Hessian brother died 2 issues ago, Heinz, his ghost has been poltergeisting them and just doing little poltergeist-like things to them. And for example, we see Jemmy's little helmet lift off of his head. Now we're back to Mandrill and Kraft. They're not too worried about Wolverine. They figured he probably took another trail. And Mandrill's getting even weirder. He tells Kraft, he says, "When I kill, it's like every passion in the world goes through me. Fear, love, triumph, pain, hate, and they're all the same. I'm only really alive when I bring death." And of course, Kraft is like, "Oh, fuck. This guy's a psycho. I'm probably going to get killed." He tries to show Kraft how to use a gun. He says, "Take aim at that squirrel. I'll show you how to do it." And God, look at this angry squirrel just staring at him. When he finally fires the gun, it just goes click because Mandrill didn't put any prime in it. And Kraft is kind of pissed off. He's like, of all the low-life tricks. But he doesn't get too mad at him because he doesn't want to piss off Mandrill. It's interesting that Mandrill himself says blood calls to blood. It's almost like he's maybe a wolf. I mean, not literally, but he shares the spirit of the wolf. He just wants to hunt and kill all the time. He says, "And when I kill, it's like I was dead myself. No better feeling." And then I love this thought balloon. Kraft is just like, "Help." Back to the 4 chuckleheads over here. So, Pear Winter asked them all these questions about Heinz, how he died. Do you have any of his objects on your person? And, because, he knows that shit. Meanwhile, Wolverine off solo, I think this is the reason why he broke off. He saw the tracks of this, I believe, the Huron? I think he's a Huron from earlier. And he's just wants to investigate. He's like, what is this Huron up to? So he tracks him through the snow, kind of stalks him. And I love the way he draws these trees here. That simple way of just a bunch of scratches, but it looks so good. That's so way better than like beautifully well rendered trees. And so the Native American ends up at this Iroquois village. It's right next to New Hope. It's very close. And Wolverine's like, "What? How could this village be here, so close to New Hope? This is odd." Here's that very sparse technique, even though it's not a flashback. This is a little shoddy. I'm gonna put a little more detail in there. And then all of a sudden, while he's contemplating all this stuff, the badly drawn wolf attacks him. And once again, we get to see these great, whenever Loebs does these action scenes, I just love him. He's just so good at all the angles, the way he tells the story with the panels. Well, this one with no panels. This is some really exciting stuff. So Wolverine tries to escape, tries to run away. The wolf is right on him. They both fall off a cliff. And this sequence right here, I love this with all this white space here too. And we see Wolverine land in the snow and kind of almost get buried by the snow. He falls right through it. It's so soft. That's a really great page. And now we're back to Pear Winter and crew. So he describes all these things that could basically get rid of Heinz's ghost, let him pass on. He says, maybe demonic incantations, divine intervention, even human sacrifice. And but he says, of course, there is a simpler way. And he yells, hey, Heinz, wake up. You're dead. And all of a sudden, the helmet falls to the ground. And they're all ecstatic. We're free of his ghost, finally. And then we see Heinz's ghost. I'm free. I just love that kind of humor in these comics. Kind of like gentle humor. I also wanted to point out that is a really well drawn. That's a lived in face. And so now we see Wolverine. This is the cliffhanger. He's half dead, it looks like. I think the wolf has already bitten him a few times. And he's kind of, I don't get this part. He's kind of buried in the snow. Maybe this is a log covered by snow. His legs are sticking out. And the wolf is on the other end trying to get through to kill him. And he says blood calls to blood. But I don't know whether, I don't think wolves are that crazy. Why doesn't he just run around and start to eat his legs? Maybe he's stuck. I don't know. A little confusing. We got the letter pages, some more fan art, calendar. Here's a nice little self-portrait of by William Eisner Loebs. Nice little sketch. And now we have number 23. A very, a very non-exciting cover here. Ooh, someone's handing a package over to someone else. Kind of bummed they don't have the recap page anymore. So now we're kind of combining Wolverine's having a nightmare, but he's also thinking about Agatha and her weird nightly nocturnal visits, where she's saying that same thing, when an archer is a harper, but she's turning into a wolf. This is almost like weird abstract poetry. The way it's lettered too, like he was cold and he hurt. The cold had teeth, but if he woke up, it hurt worse. He'd see the face of the pain. Better to lie still. The pain couldn't find him if he was still. It was better to sleep because life was pain and death was joy. So it's kind of weird, like Wolverine, who's such a survivor. I mean, if anything, he knows how to survive. But I guess, he's only human. And in this instance, he's thinking these thoughts to himself like, I'm not even going to fight. Because that means more pain. I just want to die. This would be whatever. I had a good run. So we're back to where we left off. The wolf is trying to get to Wolverine. And all of a sudden, these hands pull Wolverine by the legs. Turns out it's Eleanor. And Wolverine McAllister, even though he's like kind of half dead, he sees the wolf. The wolf finally gets out of the other side of the tunnel. I don't know why he didn't do that earlier. And he lunges at the wolf. And he yells, "Get my rifle." And this is just obviously a losing battle. Wolverine is just desperate. Once again, this is some great, exciting stuff here. The wolf that doesn't look like a wolf bites him in the arm. Once again, we get to see his point of view. Blood, tasting of life, glorious clenching of jaws, the tang of muscle, slashing, blood in the throat, blood calls to blood. Death is joy. And right then, Eleanor blows his brains out. This whole two-page sequence is really nice. I just love his storytelling, man. I know he's not the best artist in the world, but storytelling's amazing. I guess the wolf's not quite dead somehow, and Eleanor has to bash in its head with the gun butt. So Wolverine's like, how the hell, what? And she's like, yeah, I followed you guys because I don't trust that mandrill. I thought he might kill you guys too. He's a murderer. So for some reason, he insists on carrying the wolf carcass home. I guess they do need meat for winter. But he's too weak. He keeps falling in the snow. And she tells him her story, a little bit of her story. She says, you remind me of Jeremiah, my husband, the one mandrill supposedly killed. I guess he was this, he was a preacher. They called him the sin stomper. And I guess he was the kind of preacher who'd, like, if you didn't come to church on Sunday, he'd get you in a headlock and drag you to church. He was a big, brawling frontiersman, but he was a preacher. This is a good example of that sketchy, loose style here, showing his little flashback image. I really like that. I was just hovering above the scene. So she, talks about he was kind of a crude, nutty guy, but she loved him. And ever since he died, she's been wanting to get revenge, or, get justice for his death. Finally, Wolverine agrees to let her help him carry the wolf. And then they hook up with Mandrill and Kraft. Now, Kraft has got a gamey leg all of a sudden. Something, I don't know. I think an old wound or something. It's got the sepsis. So he's limping. And we see this weird, interaction between Mandrill and Eleanor, where Eleanor is just she's not saying, yeah, you fucking murderer, but she's kind of slyly saying, I'm just full of surprises, Mandrill. And he seems oblivious to the whole fact that she thinks he killed her husband. He's just kind of oh, hey, Eleanor, how's it going? So they finally make it back to the town. Everyone's thrilled that they killed the wolf. And they got his carcass so they can eat. It's interesting here that Wolverine basically, grabs the wolf and is going to take it to the smokehouse, I guess. And Wright is in there, Founder Wright. And he says, Nathaniel, back from the grave, terrified. And then he realizes, oh, it's just Wolverine, Mr. McAllister. He has another little nightmare with Agatha again, even more gruesome. And he wakes up. And Agatha's taking care of him. She asks him, what do you dream about? And McAllister says, nothing. I don't remember. So he really doesn't remember these dreams. McAllister starts basically saying, kind of bitching, saying, I shouldn't have wintered here. Whenever I stay in a town, civilization, it always goes poorly. I should have just got out into the woods, But they do tell him the story of Nathaniel, because he asks. And it turns out, nobody mentioned this earlier, Nathaniel was the trapping man, the frontiersman, who led all of them out to New Hope from the East Coast. And I guess he wasn't an easy man. He was kind of a bastard. But he had eyes on Meg Dashiell. And Meg Dashiell, I guess, was married to the founder Collins. But he didn't care. This Nathaniel guy, he didn't care if she was married or not. But apparently everyone looked up to him more than any of the founders. He was the one that delivered them there. So I guess after Collins died, that Meg Dashiell married Ross. And then she died. If you're keeping track. So all the men kind of envied him, and the founders, especially Wright, was kind of jealous of him. They were kind of rivals. like when they're in this dark common house. Just more excuse to slap ink around. So finally, the subject of the package comes up. And Wolverine is like, yeah, I gotta... Whose package is this? Nobody remembers sending off for a package. But everyone's thrilled at the idea of any mail. Because they don't have mail service there. So they all want to see what's in it. So Wolverine finally opens it up. And I guess, I don't know why it wasn't on the outside, but after you cut off some of the paper, there's an address, and it turns out that it's to Jeremiah Train, Eleanor's dead husband. She opens it up, and it's a Bible wrapped in bloody cloth. And the reason why they're sure it's blood, because McAllister just grabs it and sucks on a little, yep, that's blood all right. Because that's the kind of guy he is. So, of course, it's still a huge mystery. Nobody knows what the hell, why. So now we have an epilogue here. And once again, McAllister and Kraft are trying to sleep. And Agatha shows up again with her crazy spiel. And this time, Kraft is like, I've got to do something. She's headed for the river again. She's going to die of pneumonia. I'm going to try to wake her up. I know you're not supposed to wake up a sleepwalker, but I got to. And so he walks up to her and kind of shakes her shoulders and says, wake up, Agatha. And then right then, her grandfather, Founder Wright, comes in and says, what the devil are you doing? So there's a little cliffhanger for you. We got the letter pages again. This is a very interesting letter page. Famous letter hack T.M. Maple. They dedicate the whole, I think, 5 pages to him. It's almost all his letters, and when it's not, it's people writing about T.M. Maple, other letter hacks. We have all these kind of semi-prose and prose drawing their idea of what T.M. Maple looks like, because he's a mystery man. So Randy Zimmerman, he did a story, one of those shitty backups in the early journeys. We have Larry Martyr, Bean World, drawing what he thinks he looks like. Mike Grell, Terry Beatty and Max Collins, Mr. Maple, kind of looks just like the Mystery logo, which isn't nearly as good a comic as Silent Invasion, by the way. And then we have Mr. X here. I can't see who drew it, though. It says, oh my God, it almost looks like Joe Thompson. Could be 1985, I don't know. This is a really nice one. It's Bill Reinhold, who drew all those Badgers for First Comics. I thought it was Michael T. Gilbert. Really nice little drawing. And his version of T.M. Maple is like half Ent and half Rip Van Winkle. And then we have Bill Willingham, back when he was just known as the Elementals guy, writer and artist. And Sergio Aragones. That's kind of cool. So very, very odd, weird letter page this time. And that's it for this segment of our look at Journey number 20 through 23. Hope you guys had a good time looking at these. This is the penultimate episode. Next episode, we're wrapping it up. Journey only went to number 27, and that'll wrap up the New Hope storyline. I'm really excited. I've totally forgot what happens. I read these 25 years ago, maybe, or maybe 20 years ago, and this mystery is really this mystery he's concocted has really got me intrigued. What's going on in this town? What all this skullduggery is about? So that's it for this episode, and if you don't like these journeys, they're almost over. So take heart. I'll be looking at some other long form comic in a little while. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you here next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.